We have been tantalizing your taste buds, whetting your appetite enough. So now let's get to this actual piece of information, which is the most valuable of all information which has been stolen from humanity. And that is Hi, it's Muzz iEvolv. Thank you for being here today to watch another channel. I really appreciate you taking the time. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share in this video now. It's so essential for me to be able to keep bringing these to you free each week with love. Also, to further the project so that I can continue to be here each week, I've now created a membership site where you can subscribe, and it's very, very cheap. The most expensive one is less than $2 a day. You get the transcripts in a PDF format, the audio in an MP3 format, and the video in an MP4 format of every channel I've done in the past, plus every channel I'm planning to do in the future. And the idea of this concept is so that you can donate to me, but you will also receive something in return so we can help each other. Because I'm just a little bit uncomfortable just asking for people to give me money. So I've set this up specifically so that we can help each other. So please, if you look below here, there's a link, go there, choose a membership level and sign up, and that contribution will really help me to be here showing up week after week, and also you're going to get something of value in return. This is my book, The 3 Awakenings That Save Humanity. I recommend that you get your copy and give it a read. There is some ideas in here which will completely change the way that you live your life. And I can say that with confidence because I've heard so much feedback from people that have read this book that have said exactly that. This book literally changed their lives. It's in the paperback, audio, and ebook. And if you look below, there is a link going to a page where you can choose which of those you want and make your purchase. If you'd like to do a private channeling with me, below you'll also see there's a link going to a private channeling inquiry form. And there all that you need to do is make an inquiry, and then that just starts a conversation. It doesn't commit you to anything. And on to today's channel. Today's channel is a profound and really interesting one. It's called The Stolen Knowledge That Changes Everything. I've been getting some downloads of some really interesting insight recently, and I've got enough now that I'm going to do this channel. And so this channel is unique in that it's going to be something which I don't think you've heard before. Greetings and thank you for the statement. The stolen knowledge that changes everything. This is an exciting channel which we are very pleased to bring to you today, because we are going to cover some information which we have never spoken of before. Much of the sacred knowledge of humanity has been stolen by this small cabal of individuals that have aligned themselves around the negative end of the spiritual spectrum. They are the champions of darkness, and they are attaining all that they desire to be in possession of within the physical realm through the flexing of their accumulation of the darkness. They wield the darkness as a power because darkness is a power. And part of their strategy is to steal from humanity the sacred knowledge which gives humanity an armor, a weaponry, a defense, an offense, to give humanity an equal footing in the overall battle between light and dark. And also to give humanity a sense of profound purpose that spans millennia and millennia and millennia, and is in a very fundamental way the central focus of humanity. It is at the basis of the purpose for which humanity exists from its own reckoning. This is the potency, this is the epic value of this information which has been stolen from your species. Because if humanity was in possession of this sacred knowledge, it would live in an entirely different way. And it would have lived in an entirely different way throughout its history over the many thousands of years, which has brought it to this place. And if it had been done in that way, those that wield the darkness, those that have made the philosophical choice to be orbiting the darkness end of the spiritual spectrum, would not be in the position where they are today, where they have taken control of most of the machinations of your planet. They determine and engineer what the culture shall be, what your societal values are, what the relationships between different nations take shape, and so on. The education of your children, the information which is shared through the news and regular media. All of these instruments are all fortifying and lifting this small minority of the darkness up, 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 up as they make their ascent to the pinnacle of absolute dominion over the human race, where they shall reign supreme, unchallenged, into perpetuity, because they have so comprehensively captured humanity and the earth culture and all of society. Clearly, it is in their favor if this sacred knowledge, which would preclude this possibility of them being where they are now, was available to the rest of humanity. So, in their strategic brilliance, they have, over the course of many thousands of years, expunged this knowledge from the human psyche. So, humanity exists now in a form of amnesia, not understanding actually what it is, not understanding what its relationship with the earth is, not understanding, importantly, now we're getting down to the information which we are going to bring to you today, this sacred knowledge. Humanity's relationship to the cycles of the earth. And this is the one piece of knowledge which, if shared freely and incorporated into the very beingness of humanity, would have resulted at this point in your evolution since the last cataclysm that literally changed the shape of the world. Humanity and the earth culture would be a completely different paradigm. You all would be much closer to your ascension as far as your understanding of self, of the species, your integration into each other, your connection to the one, your composition from a spiritual sense of the light and nothing but the light, and so on. And as a result, your planet would look entirely different. There would be peace, and this peace would be something which had expanded many thousands of years. You would be abundant. There would be no lack. There would be absolute blissful cooperation between each of the races. There would be shared knowledge, shared love, shared understanding. You would be very close to what you shall finally become when the transition into the fourth density state has completed. Because it is not that far off into the future. And the intention of the design originally is that in this last phase, you would be very close in approximation to what you shall become and in this transitioned state as fifth dimensional beings in the fourth density state. And so the final step of this transition would be a gentle crossing of the threshold to fully claim the mantle as fourth density beings. And yet, here you find yourselves still with very much ground to cover in terms of self-understanding, in terms of energetics, in terms of your relationships with each other, with the One, in terms of your understanding of what your spiritual composition is. This is all repercussive. This is all consequential to this one piece of fundamental information being kept from you. And so when the final transition is made into the fourth density state, instead of being a gentle crossing of the threshold, it will be more akin to leaping over a canyon. And as such, there is going to be a larger proportionality of humanity that do not make it to the other side, that simply were not in a state of preparedness, of readiness, of energetic compatibility with the dynamics of the ascension event. So, we have been tantalizing your taste buds, whetting your appetite enough. So now let's get to this actual piece of information, which is the most valuable of all information which has been stolen from humanity. And that is, your planet has a cataclysmic season, meaning that there is a cycle of cataclysms occurring on your planet. And these cataclysms are regular enough that they represent cycles or seasons. And so, if humanity was in possession of this information, this understanding, then the time between cataclysms would be utilized in a very different way. Now let us explain this. If there is a cataclysmic cycle to your planet, so there is a cataclysm, and then there is the passing of a typical period of time, and then the cataclysm returns. And this period of time we would say is approximately 12 to 15,000 years. And when this cataclysm returns, it returns with regularity as a season because it is part of the life cycle of the larger being. So, you could say it is part of the life cycle of the earth being. This cataclysmic re-beginning, this cataclysmic recycling of all that has grown and accumulated back into the earth, such that it may begin again. And it is beginning again through this recycling, this reincorporating all that has arisen back into the earth in a similar way to how crops grow, how the vegetation will follow a seasonal cycle as part of its own life cycle. And it will go through the various stages of gestation, of growth, of formation of the fruits, of the ripening of the fruits, until eventually the fruits reach a degree of maturity where they are ready to be harvested. And they are harvested by the rest of the environment, by the animals, by the insects. And that which is not harvested falls to the ground and is incorporated back into the earth. And so the cycle now can begin again. So, this is very similar to what is occurring with the human species. And so at this time, humanity should be very ripe, very ready to be harvested into the next energetic paradigm. And this is why we use this term, the harvest. Not to infer this short period of time where humanity just recently started to realize what it is, and now it's going to go through this brief process of awakening, and then those that are vibrating at a frequency above the threshold for ascension will be harvested into the next harmonic, the next energetic paradigm. It will level up. But rather, harvest is used because the entire cycle spans from the last cataclysm, which occurred approximately 12,000 years ago. And if you were to have an advantage over the rest of the human species, such that you could dominate it to the very end, till the arrival of the next cataclysm, it would be to steal from it this fundamental sacred knowledge that the cataclysm is cyclic, that the cataclysm will return, and therefore the time that is spent between cataclysms is a period of significance, because it is a period of preparation. Preparation for what? If you are aligned to the light end of the spiritual spectrum, and you are aware that if there are cataclysmic cycles, there is a cataclysmic season, and it is part of the life cycle of this larger being, then there must be a spiritual significance. There must be a spiritual relevance. Because you are part of that larger being. You are the sentience of the earth being. This is what humanity is. You are you. You are the humanity being, and you also are the earth being, and you also are the solar system being, and you also are the galaxy being, and you also are the one. You are all of these beings simultaneously, and each smaller iteration is nested within the larger iteration. This is the fractal nature of the one, the fractal nature of your existence. You are many beings at the same time, all nested within each other. And even you yourself are a group being, because you are comprised of many trillions of cells. And those cells are in possession of a rudimentary consciousness. And those rudimentary consciousnesses, in accumulation, contribute to the larger being, which is you. You are a group being. You are part of the humanity being, which is a group being. You are part of the earth being, which is a group being, and so on, until the ultimate iteration of the fractal, which is the one. The one is the ultimate group being. And as existence is fractal in nature, it makes complete predictable sense that you also are a fractal being. If you are part of this humanity being, this group being which comprises all of humanity, then as long as humanity exists, you continue to live from a certain perspective. Because you are not only you, the individual that you see in the mirror. You are, in a larger definition of self, the humanity being. And so temporarily, you will leave your physical representation within the humanity being at the end of your current incarnation. And then as time passes, you will eventually reincarnate and return into physical representation into this larger being which you are. And so this larger being, which is rolling through time, and you and all other aspects of this, individual aspects of this larger being, are exiting and returning to continue the mission across time in synergy with yet the larger definition of self, which is the earth being. So, The earth being is going through its process of maturation, just as the humanity being is, just as you are. Therefore, this humanity being that continues to roll on through time, clearly it has a purpose, because all sentience does. In the verbiage of the human species, the ultimate purpose could be described as to know thyself to completion through experience. This is the one's purpose. Therefore, it is also the purpose of every single iteration within the one, including the humanity being. So the humanity being is rolling through time, and it is gathering experiential knowledge of itself. But eventually it will reach a point where there is no more potential for exploitation within the third density paradigm for it to grow in its understanding of itself. And therefore, it must transition into a larger expanse of its own infinity, so that there is now more of its infinity available to it for exploitation in self-knowing. This is what the different densities are. Each density is access to an even greater extent of your own infinity. And then you can transition through that density in terms of self-knowing until you reach a point where you have gathered all of the potential for self-knowing that exists within that density state. And so for you to continue your growth, your return to understanding that you are the one, because this is the ultimate destination. In this knowing thyself to completion through the vehicle of experience is always going to end with you realizing that you are the one and always have been the one. And therefore you need access to more of your infinity so this journey can continue. And this is why you then transition to yet a higher density state, and then yet a higher density state, and then yet a higher density state, until eventually the final threshold is to coalesce back into the self-identity that you are the one. And you completely coalesce, and in your individuation no longer exists, because you are just now the one. You realize that you are the one. And so this facade, this illusion of separation that you are something other than the one, no longer serves a purpose. That is the final movement, the ultimate fulfillment of the reason for which you were created. And this is the same for the humanity being. So the humanity being must, if it is to be congruent with its purpose, with the ultimate divine purpose, to transition into the next energetic state so it can continue its journey of self-knowing. So it must ascend. And if it must ascend before the end of the season, because when the end of the season comes and the cataclysm returns, the humanity being will be recycled back into the earth. And only a small number will survive, and then the process will begin again of repopulating the earth, of rebuilding civilization, of reclaiming the cultural memories, and repositioning humanity for once again being in a state of spiritual readiness, of energetic compatibility with the next cataclysmic event, which will be the next opportunity for ascension. But without this knowledge, the period between cataclysms is misused. Instead of being about this larger journey, because it is understood there is a profound spiritual significance about the cataclysm, because it is part of the life cycle of the larger being which you are a part. And as you are a part, you are literally the sentience of the earth. Then it clearly has a spiritual significance. A spiritual significance which is more profound than anything else which occurs on this planet in terms of the earth being and its individuations which act as its sentience, known as humanity. Without this knowledge, humanity has pursued many different endeavors which do not serve the greater purpose. There has been the accumulation of wealth, the accumulation of status, the accumulation of power, the pursuit of meaningless gratification, of pleasure, and so on, and all of the negative emotions such as greed and jealousy and hate and anger and depression and sadness and despondency and hopelessness. All of these have been imbued into humanity in a very significant and debilitating way. So humanity is crippled energetically, crippled emotionally, and also using much of its time and energy in pursuit of objects and statuses which have no sway on your preparedness for this event which is coming. It is, from our perspective, a very shocking and stunning form of amnesia, of blindness, that the bulk of humanity is in this sacred cycle, the cataclysmic season, and yet does not prepare, is not aware, is in a state of wastefulness of this spiritual opportunity, which comes and goes and then does not come again for many thousands of years. However, if you were in possession of this sacred knowledge, you understood that there is a cataclysmic cycle. There is the season of the cataclysm. And yet you hoarded that information for yourself, so that when the cataclysm returns, only you and those that are aligned with your ideology, with your objectives, with your spiritual focus, are in a state of preparedness. Then when the cataclysm has passed and the survivors emerge into the new paradigm, into the reset state of the planet where much has been returned back into the earth, yet you are still in possession of the technology, of the art, the cultural understanding, the societal experience, the science, the technology. You have remained in possession of those because you were prepared as a direct result of your unwillingness and your nefarious intent to keep that information for yourself. And not only keeping it for yourself, but then as society and civilization re-emerge in the millennia that follow the cataclysm, you send your minions across the earth with the objective to expunge the knowledge of the repeating cataclysm from your societies, from your education system, from your cultural memory. And this is why, when you look at the archaeological science on your planet, there is very little relevance or significance given to the idea that there was cataclysms in the past. In fact, the mainstream archaeology will deny that this is so, even when there is substantial evidence to suggest that not only was there a significant cataclysm in the past which reset the planet, reset humanity, that prior to that cataclysm, there was significant civilization using advanced technologies which do not exist today, because they built structures which have remained standing for over 10,000 years. And the building blocks, the megaliths which were used in these constructions, are so incredibly large that it seems impossible to have been done with hand tools and ropes and so on. But instead, it was through the utilization of technologies which allowed the movement of very large and heavy objects, as if weightless. This, of course, is a very intriguing idea. It piques one's curiosity. It is such a fascination that perhaps there was civilizations preceding what modern-day archaeologists say was the beginning of civilization. Modern archaeology says civilization began in Sumeria, approximately 5,000–6,000 years ago. However, there are several structures which are significant in size and also the megalithic weight of the building blocks, which is known to be as much as thousands of years earlier constructed than what is believed to be what modern archaeology says was the very first civilization. Yet, when there is such intriguing insight into a different historical perspective of your species, of your planet, one must ask, why is there not more investigation into this? Why does the mainstream archaeological field seem very resistant to investigate these possibilities? It is because it is engineered this way. Different scientific fields within your planet are deliberately corrupted, are deliberately managed and shaped such that the truth remains hidden. Because if the truth comes out that there is indeed a cataclysmic cycle, and this season of the cataclysm is about to turn over again, so the cataclysm is not far away from returning to reset the earth, and therefore this time which is left until the return of the cataclysm is of incredibly significant spiritual relevance. This is the period you're in now, the most important period of this cycle, of every cycle, the final generations before the return of the cataclysm. Because in these final generations, that the acceleration of humanity's awakening in preparation for the return of the cataclysm is most profound, is most potent. And so when the cataclysm does return, it is not a tragic disaster which decimates the civilization, but is instead the inertial push, the energy which is required to shove humanity out of the third density across the threshold and into the fourth density. So it may emerge from the birth canal of ascension as a completely different species within a completely different paradigm. This is its purpose. This is the role it plays. And it is a blessing like no other. It is a blessing which visits upon your earth in the human experience only once, every 12,000 plus years. And when it does, the spiritual impact on your species is more profound than at any other time. And also in the years preceding its return, when the return comes with a recognition, with an understanding that it is on its way back, then all of the useless pursuit, all of the fruitless endeavor, all of the wasted states of being which are not aligned with this larger cycle are cast aside, and your species becomes solely focused on what is at hand, to be prepared. Let us finish in this way. There is still time. Even though this information has been withheld from humanity, the humanity being is in a state of unpreparedness relative to what it was intended to be at this stage of the cycle, where humanity was intended to be a relatively enlightened species that was living in harmony, in love, in beauty, in bliss, and ready to make its gentle stepping over the threshold into the next energetic state in a very elegant and peaceful way. Despite this not being the presentation of humanity at this time, the human you are part of the humanity being, which is part of the earth being, which is part of the solar system being. And so all of these aspects are all the single being, and they are all working collaboratively to still make sure that even in this presentation where the intention has been knocked off its rails, the largest proportionality of humanity possible under these conditions still makes the transition. Your planet is providing you with the energetic calibration right now to prepare you for this transition into the fourth density state. Your solar system, with the sun at its center, is also providing you an energetic quality, a contribution to your energetics to calibrate you into the dynamics of the ascension such that you are ready. You can utilize what is being made available to you such that it gets you into the rhythm, that it synchronizes your cadence so that when it comes, you are prepared. But even more so, because instead of being very close to the stepping over of the threshold, there is instead this large canyon which must be leaped. The sun is prepared to release much of the energy it intended to release very slowly, gradually over time. This transformative energy, which will actually slowly transform the human species into something entirely different, such that when the transition gently across the threshold into the fourth density state is made, humanity has already completed most of its physical, spiritual evolution. But because of how this experiment has been derailed, the sun has necessarily had to hoard this energy. Because if this energy was unleashed on the earth human experience, it would be overwhelming. Because humanity is not ready. Because it has been held back. It has been stymied by those that have stolen this sacred knowledge and aligned themselves around the darkness end of the spiritual spectrum and working in collaboration with outer world, extraterrestrial beings, and so on. There is more elaboration to this story. But remaining focused on what we are saying, this combined effort by the allies of darkness has held humanity back. So humanity is not ready. But the sun understands this. because you are an aspect of the sun, as is the humanity being, as is the earth being. It is all the one being. And it is self-regulating and is prepared when the ascension event occurs to provide a quality of energy in a pulse which will transform humanity in a very profound way very quickly. It will literally change the DNA, the chromosomal nature of each of you that is prepared. If you resonate at a frequency high enough, then when this pulse from the sun comes, instead of it being so destructive that it breaks down your physicality, it literally tears apart the DNA and the chromosomes that are contained within your cells. It will instead activate, switch on, unlock, unleash latent DNA potential which all of you possess, because all of you are complex hybrid beings that have been created and then changed and manipulated in various ways for various reasons. But much of what has been done to the genetics of the human race has been to prepare it to be a very unique species once this transition is made into the fourth density state. There is more that can be elaborated on in regard to the DNA of humanity, in regard to this alliance of the darkness, which is discussed in the book which we channeled, The 3 Awakenings That Save Humanity. Begin preparing now if you are not already. And the easiest way to prepare is to just become a being which is more representative of the light, that acts from the light, that speaks from the light, that thinks from the light. And this is the same as saying, be a being which is sincerely, authentically of greater integrity, of more virtue. And this is a being which is in preparation, which is moving along the path as was intended in preparation for this transition into the fourth density state. So that when the cataclysm returns, you are vibrating at a frequency high enough above the threshold such that you are harvested, and the fruit which is bore by the humanity being over this maturation cycle which began at the end of the last cataclysm can be harvested as was always intended. And then you are released into, birthed from the birth canal of ascension into the fourth density state to begin the cycle again. Not the cycle of the cataclysm, but the cycle of transition across the density, expansion into this new octave of your infinity, such that you can continue the journey of knowing thyself to completion through experience, until all that is available to you in the fourth density state has been exploited, necessitating that you then transition once again, ascend once more, crossing the threshold into the next density, the fifth density, such that you may continue this journey of expansion into knowing what you are, until ultimately coming to the realization at the end of transitions across all densities that you are and always have been the one. Thank you, and we love you.